You may or may not have noticed that I changed my profile picture slash logo on my YouTube channel and my men's only Instagram account, xy.philosophy, to this weird looking symbol with these three legs together at the thigh, turning, running in sort of a counterclockwise position over a red background. So just wanted to take a moment to explain what that symbol is about, where it comes from, and why it's at least a placeholder on these particular accounts. So that symbol itself is called the Triskelion. Basically, it's Medusa without the female head and snakes for hair. So where Medusa is more yin, this is more yang. It's, we could say, the masculine version of Medusa. And astrologically, it represents the sun, which is the divine masculine principle in astrological symbolism. It's the thing that provides light and heat and energy to the rest of the solar system or the universe, as far as we can actually see out there, right? So that's why in astrology, the sun more or less represents the ego energy and the father, and how the father impacts the person's self-worth and what kind of energy they can confidently put out into the world. Okay, does that make sense? Excuse me. The legs running in the counterclockwise position are meant to represent independence from Great Britain. Although it's the Isle of Man, which uses this symbol on their flag, is technically part of the UK. It is also its own country, kind of like the other countries within Great Britain. It has its own parliament. It has its own, tax laws. It more or less has independence from Great Britain. And even though Northern Ireland is also part of the UK and is on the other side of the Irish Channel, so it's kind of landlocked by the UK, it is meant to represent independence. Okay. So it's over a red background, which red, again, astrologically represents fire and the divine masculine energy of the four astrological elements, which, it represents creation, represents courage and valor and assertiveness and taking initiative, doing first, thinking later. Whether that means you learn from your mistakes or you throw yourself into the fire and you strengthen yourself through exposing yourself to new things. Courage. So as this Triskelion is represented, it in the version of it that I've posted on my profile, that is the Isle of Man flag. Actually, they use that red background with the Triskelion in the counterclockwise direction. And so I'm still learning about the history of the Isle of Man, but it's a place I'm quite fascinated with for multiple reasons. One being it's kind of like independent and Martian and sun-oriented mindset, collective mindset, and the way that it goes about its business and the way it goes about its laws, with the exception of when you're driving through villages and towns. Just if you're just talking about rural roads, there are no speed limits on the island. It's all about independence as a collective, but also as individuals. If you want to drive fast on the island and you get in an accident, that's on you. No one else is there to hold your hand or to smack you on the wrist or tell you that you should or shouldn't do that. You should, take responsibility for your own well-being, for your own safety, drive within the limits of your own mind, right? But there are 2 weeks out of the year, actually more if you consider the Manx Grand Prix. There are 2 weeks out of the year in particular where there are not any speed limits, um, even through the towns. And we are, if you're watching this at the time of posting, we are in the middle of those 2 weeks right now. It's during the Isle of Man TT, which is well over 100-year-old annual motorcycle race uh, through the Isle of Man on a 38-mile course on the public roads. Um, and if this event were pitched to any other municipality or local government or even countries government, hey, I want to have a motorcycle race here through public roads in this capacity, you'd be told to go fuck off, right? But the fact that it is allowed on the Isle of Man, this place that represents itself by using this Triskelion, a masculine symbol. It's also called the Isle of Man, by the way. Okay, so the men shall lead, or at least virtuous masculinity shall lead here. Yeah, you'd be told to fuck off by any other government. It's just not something that would even be considered by any governing body, because it is so dangerous. Since its beginning, an average of 3 people have died on the Isle of Man TT every year. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 5 or 6, but it averages out to about almost 3. My point in mentioning this is regarding my respect for the Isle of Man and what their flag represents, both symbolically and in how they actually embody those principles. It's almost the epitome of free will. It's like the First Amendment in America on steroids, right? That you're free to not only speak but act in accordance with your own will and your own self-expression to the utmost degree. And the friends and the families of these racers for this event, they too have to accept the reality that this is a dangerous event, but it's about passion, red, which is something that everyone needs an outlet for, but it's also about personal accountability and responsibility toward your own safety, and that there is such a gap between, say, the front runners who are very experienced racing on the island and who've been doing it for many years versus the newbies. This is not a track you can just show up and learn it right away and instantly fight for podiums. It takes maturity. Most of the competitive riders are well into their 30s and have been riding for years. Some of them are in their 50s even. So they're more seasoned racers than what you get these, rich, entitled little kids who are racing F1 nowadays and even MotoGP. But hey, not to take away from their talent or anything. It's just, you can kind of pay your way into those sports nowadays. But you also have to show it on the track. You have to have the talent and the financial backing. But no, there's this, because there is such a gap in the performance, between a new rider and a seasoned rider at the Isle of Man. It shows the importance and the value placed on the Isle of Man more broadly, that they say, hey, if you want to participate in this race, your safety is your responsibility. Your performance is your responsibility, and you're charged with, yes, pushing the limits to an extent that you improve, you expose yourself to more risk, but learn, I can push it a little more through this corner and through that corner and onto that straight. I can brake a little later here or there. That you're still riding within the limits of your actual competence and awareness and control. And that is where the responsibility lies, not on some third party overarching government to tell you you can do this and you shouldn't do that. Responsibility's on you. As any standard for free will, freedom of speech and expression should hold, should protect. But of course, we see that breaking down a bit in the West, even in America, in certain corners of America, and in certain corners of the private sector, you know. But the more public that lack of self accountability becomes, the more alarmed we should be. And in fact, it is happening at a rather alarming rate. So, anyway, just that's a long winded way of talking about that symbol, but also about the Isle of Man, which uses that symbol, the Triskelion, as its national flag, what it represents, and the example of the Isle of Man TT motorcycle race that goes on there as the epitome of them holding to that value of freedom and self accountability. So anyway, it's going on right now. Check it out. It's an awesome event. Probably the greatest motorsport event in the world, and I'm saying that as a lifelong motorsport fan and professional motorsport official. And hey, look, even motorcycle racing, which I've been doing a lot of lately, it's only as dangerous as your lack of awareness and competence is. There's a way to ride a bike that anticipates accidents before they happen. And there are ways that you can orient your attention and your perception that make even the most inevitable incident more avoidable. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's all on you, baby. All right, have a nice day. Cheers.